Hey, everybody. Welcome to Business Insights with Matt Milia, episode number 29. I have Mr. Curtis Washington here. And guys, you're going to want to watch this all the way through, because if you want to level up your fitness and you want to level up in branding and really just level up in all aspects of business, you want to stay tuned for all of the amazing takeaways you'll get from this. And now our show starts. Welcome to Business Insights with Matt Milia. I'm your host, Matt Milia, and in this podcast, we'll talk about the real, raw, uncut business success secrets you won't find anywhere else. Follow my journey from entry level to CEO. We discuss real actionable items you can plug into your business right away. To subscribe to our weekly top tips, you can go to www.mattpodcast.com and join our community of elite high-level performers. And if you're interested in our inside sales company, you can go to www.appointmentstoday.com to jump on a free strategy call. And now, stay tuned for our podcast. All right. So, Mr. Curtis Dubblup Washington, what's happening, my man?
What's up, man? Man, that is a hell of an intro, man. That is dope. I like that. Set you up, get you ready for an exciting couple of minutes of conversation.
That's it. It's like the mic drop. So, yeah. Well, so Curtis, I really appreciate you jumping on, especially now with you being in the fitness industry and, you know, people staying at home. And it's so funny because we just talked about this not even probably a minute and a half ago about, you know, hey, I'm looking to level up in my fitness. So we will definitely be talking offline from here. But I want to really, for anyone who doesn't know you, kind of share a little bit your background, your story, and of course how it all evolved from, you know, a really difficult, challenging beginning to now, you know, being in a really successful place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first I want to thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure and an honor. So yeah, nothing I love more than to talk about myself. So here we go. No, I'm just kidding. But straight up, like he told you, my name is Curtis, but I go by the name of Dubblup. And I got that name in high school, and it was a nickname that started off on the football field because I played high school football, and they would call you by your last name. So they would, you know, hey Jones, hey Thompson, whatever, Washington. That's my last name. Too many syllables for them to continue to throw out there. So they would shorten it to W, same amount of syllables. So eventually they just called me Dub. And that's what I was known by all through high school, was Dub. That's what people, some of my homies from back in the day, that's what they still call me. What's up, Dub? So I stuck with that name. And just to give you a little bit of my background, like I've always, since I can remember, had like an entrepreneurial spirit. Like when I was a kid, my brother and I, we were big into video games, and we had our own like imaginary video game companies. Like I still, and it's funny because the video game company that I created when I was like 8 or 9, the logo, so it was called Asasi, ASASI, All Shapes and Sizes Incorporated. And the logo was this A without the line in the middle, and then a smaller one there. Well, if you look at every logo I've had up to Double Vision, still has a variation of that. It's just this way for the V. So I've had that ever since I was a kid. But when I was in high school, I decided like, yo, college, I'm not doing the college thing. I don't want to get a job, none of that. And my mom, I'm so blessed because my mom was like, well, follow your heart, like do whatever you feel like is, you know, God is pulling you towards. And so at that point, I wanted to be a rapper, and not just a rapper, but I want to be a gangster rapper. And, and this is honestly, like, this was my first official step into branding, because knowing that I wanted to be a gangster rapper, I said that my actions have to be in alignment such that it creates consistency in the eyes of the consumer. So I was definitely a rapper. I had the equipment. And funny story, I hope my mom's not watching this because I don't think she knows this story, but my first like misstep as a teenager, I had my first job at a video store, and me and my homeboy, we used to take like really shitty microphones and tape them to the ceiling And then we plug them into the computer, and that's how we rap. And we're like, yo, like this sounds terrible. We need like to upgrade this equipment. So I was working at this video store, and I remember the manager one day, he was like, you know, it would be so easy to rob this place. Like, I'm the manager. And we kind of joked about it. I'm like, yo, like, why don't we do that? So one day we planned it all out. We had him walk into the video store, and then my homeboy had the ski mask on. He ran up behind him, and it was all on security camera, so it looked real. We had him empty out the whole safe, which it wasn't a whole lot of money. I think it was like maybe $1,500, like that we were supposed to split 3 ways. So anyway, we took all of the money, and it was like dollar bills and the coins wrapped up in a thing. And we went to some variation of Guitar Center. It wasn't a Guitar Center, but something like that. And we just loaded up on music equipment. And that's like how we first started making music. And then I'm not proud of this, but he ended up getting in trouble for that. And he got fired, and he didn't tell on us. But we broke bread with him. And that was my first like real recording studio. And so I had the rapper part down, and I was really good at crafting. Like, I'm still a good writer to this day. But in order to get the persona and to keep the brand like legitimate, I started doing some of the gangster stuff. More specifically, started kind of hanging out with gangbangers and selling drugs. Now, from my background, like I'm a middle child. Like, I have an older brother and a younger brother. But I'm also middle child in the sense that I don't come from poverty. I don't come from the hood, none of that. But I also don't come from silver spoon, upper echelon either. Like, I'm just in the middle. Like, I'm one of the castaways of society. Like, yeah, he could go either way. So with that being said, like when I was younger, growing up in Los Angeles, my parents were adamant, like, stay away from the gangbang stuff. Like, we couldn't wear Raiders gear or any of that stuff. Like, we had to, like, that's why I'm a Rams fan to this day. Like, my dad was like, you're a Rams fan. You don't get to be a Raiders fan, because LA Raiders was like the gangbangers. So we moved to Denver in '94. In Denver, they always wanted to be like California. And they had like fake gangbanging stuff out there. So I fit right in because I'm from the real thing. I saw it. I wasn't involved in it, but I saw it. So I was able to emulate it pretty well. And doing a lot of the gangster stuff right out of high school, I dropped out. And that was my first step into not just the branding, like I mentioned, but true entrepreneurship. Because selling drugs and, running a business are very similar in that, you have a product, you create the demand for the product, you distribute the product, you use a portion of your revenue to reinvest into the business. Like, it's very similar, just the products. One is illegal, one's not. So I learned that game very easily, but I stayed away from doing like the big stuff. Like, I didn't get no ounces or keys or like all the stuff the rappers talk about. I just stayed with very small amounts. In fact, there's a term in dope dealing called a double up, where if I come to the guy and I have $20 and I give him my 20, he'll give me $40 worth of product to go sell, make the $40 back. I give him the $40, he'll give me $80 worth of product. So it was a way for you to start from nothing and continue to build, as long as you don't get greedy and you don't use your product. So I wouldn't go any further than double up. I'd show up and he, what you need, just double up. That's all I say, because I didn't want to, just let me handle my business here. And it was a good way, not saying not proud of this, but it was a good way to fund the music, so we could get flyers made, get studio time, to get things mixed and mastered. And eventually we ended up throwing shows, and I'll get into that, of how that kind of segued into digital marketing. But the product, I would come in and get the double ups to the point where he would say, here comes Mr. Double Up. And that was my rap name. So Mr. Double Up was the rap name that I took on. And that's all we did, just in the streets of Denver. We'd record music, we'd burn CDs. So young kids, if you don't know what a CD is, it's a circular disc that you would place into, no, I'm just kidding. But, that was our hustle. So I went away from selling drugs and took that same concept and put it into making the CDs. We would create the art. We were out in the streets all the time, so we had the credibility, and we also had the relationships. So then once we created the product, all it was is a matter of telling them how to exchange. And at this point, it's like, we have to show up. You give me the $5, I give you the CD, and then it keeps going. So this kind of went on. And honestly, I did pretty well. And this is when social media was starting to kick up. So we diverted our energy to MySpace. So that was like the first place that we would do. Yep. MySpace and Napster. And Napster was genius because they had peer-to-peer sharing. And they also had just this long chat room, so that you could say like, yo, anybody want to hear my new track? And then people say, yeah, you give them the link to it, and then they would just download directly from your hard drive. So you could share your music across the world that way. And then MySpace was the first place that we could go into somebody who we'd never interacted with, introduce ourselves in the inbox. This is before like it became spammy and all that. And create a relationship, tell them what we're up to, and they would come out to our shows. They'd buy our CDs and our merchandise. So at this point, I had gotten away from selling dope and started using, but it wasn't like crack or anything like that. Like I my brain just works a different way. So there's a lot of psychedelics that I was really into. And Sherm is one of the ones that I really took to. And if you ever been around somebody that's like on drugs, their brain is like all over the place. So like the stuff that I was doing, I didn't realize what I had going on, but I was just doing. And I ended up actually opening up a studio in the middle of Aurora, Colorado, Denver, Colorado, like on the border with my mom and another associate who he ended up getting arrested right before the store opened. He did 14 years in federal. He was doing too much. But so was I, because at that time I had a recording studio that I ran during the day, and then I would sell, just only selling the PCP out of the back at night. And, you know, it was pretty whatever transaction people, but there's a lot of like suspect people coming through. And I remember one night in particular, these guys came through to the studio. They bought a little something from me. They left, and I saw them out the window get pulled over. And they got pulled over, and they went to jail. Like they went in the cop car. I said, damn, they got busted. But then I saw that same dude about 2 days later. Didn't think anything of it, but I saw him 2 days later. I'm like, oh man, they let you out. Yeah. So fast forward a couple weeks, I was in the studio, and at this point I was like done selling stuff. I was like, cool. And I met this girl on MySpace. So I'm like, okay, tonight we set up a date. I'm gonna go meet this girl. I ain't messing with none of this stuff. No. So earlier in that day, I had a bunch of studio sessions back to back, and I went in, and as I step out to have a cigarette, I look up and I see these people working on the roof. I'm like, this is out of the ordinary. Guy even waved to me, you know. It's like, okay, these guys are doing their work. Yeah, you know, enjoy your day. And I kept going out, kept seeing them up there. Finally, the evening came, and I'm getting ready for the date, getting fresh. And I go out to my car, and I realize I still have a little bit of the product in my hand or in my pocket. So getting in the car, I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to put it in the door. I'm not even going to deal with it. It's just in the door. I forgot to put it away. As I back my car out, about 4 undercover cars just pulled up on the back of me, and then get out of the vehicle, get out of the car. So I'm freaking out, right? And I don't recommend anybody do this, but when cops pull their guns out on you, like, stay in the car, don't move. What I did was I hopped out of the car and I locked the door. Boom, shut it. So I'm thinking, okay, the door is locked. They can't get in there. They can't see what I have going on in my car. Fine. But I was driving a 1995 Chevy Caprice, which is an old cop car. So I don't know what they did, but they flipped something under the hood, and all the doors, the latches just went open. I'm like, oh, shit. And went to jail that night. That was, you know, I had been in jail a couple of times, but this was the big one. This was like, they're going to put you away for this. So that was the end of the music stuff. I hit depression, cleaned up. You know, when you go sober, you kind of hit a really low point in your life. And seeing the judge and everything, he said, like, you're facing 20 to 30 years in like the Department of Corrections, like real prison. So I'm freaking out, like, man. So here I am at that time was at 2007. So I was 24, and I'm like, man, my life is over. I just messed it all up, man. And at that point, that's when I first got into fitness. And it wasn't because, I want to live this healthy lifestyle. It's like, yo, if I'm facing 20 years in the penitentiary, like, I better put some meat on these bones or they're going to tear me up in there. So that's all I started doing was just going to the gym. And all I knew was just bench press and pull-ups. And I didn't even squat, I was scared of leg stuff, but just like kind of getting into that mode. And, I was blessed to be able to have a really good lawyer that got me out of the 20 to 30 years. And I ended up doing 8 years in community correction, community correction, which is the halfway house. So I skipped prison, went directly to the halfway house, which was the biggest blessing because it gave me the opportunity to sit down and take a look at my life. Because up to that point, 25 years old, thinking, man, like I could have messed this up. And I didn't. So that was my second chance that I was given. I got my GED, and they even let me go to college while I was in in the halfway house. So I got a degree in film and video. I got a degree in broadcasting. And then I was working on my bachelor's in mass communication, all while continuing to work on my fitness and all of this stuff. So fast forward about 8 years, we're talking 2013. And I was sentenced 8 years, 5 years they let me out. So I got out a little bit early in 2013. And here I am once again, like, what do I do with my life? So I don't know if the people who are listening to this have ever had to ask themselves that question, but you start trying stuff and you just, you try things on and you kind of see what works. And so when I was going to college this entire time, I had always worked at hotels because hotels like the easiest job you could ever do. Like, here's your key, like literally. And I was so blessed to work overnight. So like you see 5 people, you can take a nap and get up, and it's a full-time job while I was going to school. So I knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. So it's like, yo, what am I going to do? So my wife, who was then my girlfriend, was like, well, yo, you're in the gym all the time. Like, why don't you get into personal training? And I'm like, okay, might as well. So I got the study material, and I was intimidated. So this is 2013. I didn't even pick that stuff up until 2014. So I did a whole year of just sitting on this material. And finally, I was like, let's go. So at the beginning of 2014, I got certified as a personal trainer. And then, like, I don't know if you ever got certified in something, or you got like your real estate license or something. It's like, all right, now it's time to start selling houses. Now it's time to start training people. And it doesn't work like that. Like, because the first thing I did was like call up my friends and my family, like, hey, I'm a personal trainer, come work out with me. And they were like, no. So I'm like, well, shoot, I don't get it. Like what? And I wasn't thinking about all the stuff that I had done as a rapper to position myself as somebody who you would desire to work with. So I'm just thinking, I got the skill set, you should want to work with me. And I flopped. Like for the first 6 months, just nothing. So I decided that I needed to get a job. So I got a job at a big box gym, and I learned the systems, and I learned sales, and I learned customer retention, like just the stuff that they don't teach. Like they teach you anatomy and they teach you nutrition, but they don't teach you how to like interact with people. So like that part was so necessary. But I'll never forget it was Thanksgiving 2015, and I was like the top trainer, like maybe number 2. And they had this thing where it's like, if you had under 35 hours, you're considered part-time. Anything over 35 billable hours is full-time with benefits. Well, the week of Thanksgiving, I hit 34.5 hours, and they took all my benefits. And it was at that moment I said, look, I can't work for nobody. I can't do this. Like they're literally dangling my livelihood, because my wife and I were under their insurance. And it was like, shit, what do we do? So one of my clients actually introduced me to, I don't know if you're familiar with Tim Ferriss.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So she introduced me to his podcast, and I just started listening. Who's the Tim Ferriss guy? I like what he's talking about. And I found this book, The 4 Hour Work Week.
Yep. I was going to say work day or work week. Yeah. I mean, 4-hour work week is hard to just even justify, but yeah, I mean, that's
and in retrospect, man, like that book is a lot of like fluff, but it really got me into this whole, like, there's another world out there besides like clocking in and waiting for somebody to get your paycheck. So I started to think about this stuff, and it was funny. I said, okay, I'm going to take what I learned at these jobs and reapply it to my fitness business. And then that whole branding idea came back, and I was on a flight back from Los Angeles, and I had this idea of fly fit, and it was a play on words. So the first thing was fly. We help you soar, but you also get sore, like, you know, like that. So that was the first part. And then it was fly fit. Like, it's actually, you know, fly being dove, like, you know, dressing fly. So it was adding style to it, fly fit. But then the other part of it was fly fit, getting fit on the fly. Like, how can we take it out of the gym and into your home? Which, if I'd have stuck with it, it'd be perfect timing right about now. But everything happens for a reason. So building that brand, I was on the flight, and I remember I was right before they cut off the Wi-Fi. I just saved a picture of the Bentley logo, and I drew over it on the plane, and I drew the logo right there. It was 2 F's and the Bentley logo. And I sent it over to my buddy, and he rasterized it and made it look sleek, and it looked like an emblem. And I was like, yeah, that's it, Fly Fit Lifestyle. And that was my first brand that I built, like, from scratch. And I remember thinking, man, okay, obviously I can't bring this to my friends because, like, they're not interested. So how am I going to get eyeballs on this? And it was like the first rollout of Facebook ads. Like, Facebook ads were dumb cheap. You could run a Facebook advertisement on your personal profile at that time. And so I told my buddy, okay, you build the landing page, I'll build the program, and then we'll just run some ads. Now, at this time, believe it or not, I was getting leads for a nickel a piece.
Wow.
Like, no lie. Like, because nobody was doing Facebook ads at that time. And I didn't really see it as Facebook ads. I was just like, yo, like, I could show this to more people. So I ran a thing called the 30-day evolution, and we had this like sleek purple and black, like, it was really, like, he did a good job on the design and the whole concept, and people were just opting in, like, let's go. Meanwhile, that's all I had. I didn't actually have the 30-day program like mapped out. I had the concept, and we just put that out there and let's see what happens. I had all these people signing up. So I was kind of making yeah, exactly, those leads for a nickel. And I had people like hopping in. And so that was my first kind of dabbling with digital marketing and putting the branding behind it. But it was only just a logo and some colors. So we had to say, okay, what does this actually stand for? Like, what is the actual, like, meaning behind this? And then this is where I kind of got a little sidetracked, because as I started to study digital marketing and branding, I got less and less interested in fitness. And so this is around the time I met Big Marv, and I put out a post, and I actually joined a mastermind for learning how to build Facebook ads. I already knew, right, but how to sell it as a service. And I met Marv in that group, and we just kind of bonded, and it was kind of like, okay, well, what do we do with this? And the first thing we did was we figured out, like, yo, like, we could package this information and sell it online. So I spent about 1.5 years of just developing and bringing on digital marketing clients. And as I'm doing this, I'm understanding how important branding is, because this was the wave. This is when digital marketing was like, everybody's an entrepreneur or digital marketing. I'm like, well, shoot, everybody's doing it. How do you stand out? What can you do? So just kind of going through different ways to do it. I was just diving into branding, and I came across a woman named Pia Silva, and she kind of became an unofficial mentor for me. And she said something that stuck with me forever. She said, what do you enjoy about what you do? And I said, you know, the list will be shorter if I tell you, like, you know, what I don't enjoy. Like, the things that I don't enjoy are this. The things that I do enjoy are strategy, storytelling, and brand development. She's like, focus on that, delegate the rest. So that piece of advice led me down this path of like, okay, branding is so important because you could be subpar. Perfect example. I say the best personal brand is Donald Trump, because he may or may not be the best or worst president ever. Doesn't matter. We all know who he is, and nobody is indifferent about him. We either love him or hate him. There's no indifference. And I studied how he did that, and his whole campaign, which is not the presidential campaign, but his campaign back from the 80s, where he was showing up on Home Alone and at WrestleMania and just staying in your face, right? And it's like, as I studied these things, I realized that, like, this is the most important part of a business, of a brand, is what sets you apart from the pack. And as I start to go over my life, I'm like, that's what, anytime I've been successful, it's when I've been able to extract what about me separates me from the pack. And that's my gift, is being able to see what someone's unique, like what separates them from the pack, things that people can't see. Like, yo, that's your strength. And so for a while, I got into helping people figure out what separates them in the marketplace, and then doubling down on that so that they can dominate a small niche versus trying to cast a wide net. And then it becomes effective storytelling, how you create that rapport with people in general. And that went up until about the third quarter of 2019, when for some reason, and I think it was just God's divine intervention, but my business just hit a wall, and then just like revenue just stopped. I was like, man, what is going on here? So me and Marv, we had been business partners at this point, and we're just like, okay, what exactly can we do to capitalize on this blueprint that you literally created, a blueprint on how to create a personal brand? I was like, well, your guess is as good as mine, because I'm spent at this point. And so I saw what he was doing, and it wasn't in alignment with where I saw myself. And if I'm being completely honest, I had to take a step back and redefine what that was that I saw for myself, because I think we're all flawed human beings. And when we step back and just kind of like analyze and give a little introspection, we can see room for improvement like anywhere. So I just like, okay, well, what fires me up? And I just couldn't figure it out. And one day I was like driving, and I was praying to God, like in tears, just like, what do? I don't understand this. I don't know why I exist right now. Like, just God, give me something. And it was around that Christmas time, and the gym that I had worked at, they hit me up like, would you like to come sub for some boot camps? I'm like, yeah, sure, I can use the money. So I went and subbed, and I was like, yo, this feels good again. Like, okay, I see where I'm at. And I was shooting videos and just kind of having some fun there. And my dad called me out of the blue. He never calls me. And he called me out of the blue, and he was like, I saw that video you did at the gym. Like, you look more like yourself. And he's like, can you just do me one favor? Can you give that a second try? Can you put some effort behind that? And I was like, man, I can do that. And so I, as a promise to him, I jumped back in, just kind of like, I'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, I can say it's your fault, you know what I mean? And actually, it was just like clockwork, like things were happening. It was the right time of the year, Christmas into the New Year. So, you know, people were trying to get their fitness going in again.
New me, new you.
Yeah. And again, but here's the crazy part. We started to see that ascension. Boom, COVID-19, everything shut down. So it was like, wow, what just happened? But what makes this so beautiful is that 36 years of experience going through what I went through with the music, knowing how to write and craft a story, right? Understanding how to create video assets, understanding how to be in front of a camera. You know, I went to acting school. Like I had all that in my belt. Going through the digital marketing phase to understand how these platforms work and how I can leverage these digital marketing platforms to embellish my business puts me in the prime position right now to not only flourish in our current situation, but to help as many people as possible do the same. Because in all honesty, with the exception of a few industries, the time to like double down on digital products and leverage these social media platforms is no hotter than right now. Like now is the time to do it. And so that brings me to like where I'm at right now. It's like all of it full circle. And anybody who's listening to this, just know that like there's no mistakes that happen in your life. Everything that might feel like a failure or a loss is just a contributing factor to something bigger that you may or may not be able to see right now. Like my fitness right now and this business is just a rung on the ladder of where I'm actually headed.
I love that. And it's funny because when I heard your story originally, what resonated the most for me was the fact that you went through such hardships, but you got out of it. You built massively successful businesses, but then of course you experienced the failure that we all do, but that failure is a lesson. And I mean, it's just a part of a greater journey. It's a part of your path. I mean, you have to, because even during this time, I mean, we're an inside sales company that focuses on setting up face-to-face appointments. So you can imagine how it's definitely been challenging because some states are more accepting of that. Some areas, I'm fine. I don't care what's going on. I'll meet with you. Other people, they don't even, they think they might catch it through the telephone. So you're having to constantly reinvent yourself, but do it in a way that's congruent with who you are and what you want to put out into the world. The one thing when you and I met that really brought me in was the project that you were working on. And I don't think it came to fruition, but I thought that was an amazing thing. Would you mind sharing a little bit about what you were going to be doing with that?
Yeah, most definitely. So it's funny you mentioned that because that actually was heavy on my heart for the last few days. So essentially what it was Vision and Grind. And it was a 3-pillar program or a 3-pillar project where it was a book, a documentary, and a soundtrack. That the foundation of it was actually to empower as far back as middle school students to understand that what you see, and especially what you see as a possibility, is always and will always be a viable possibility when you put the work behind it, the grind behind it. And so I wanted to bring it full circle and to make it so that the music part of it would be that uplifting type of music, because I told you I was a rapper back in the day, but stuff I rapped about now is not only like irrelevant now, but it's also like kind of against my morals right now. Like I listen to some older stuff like, who's that guy? But I wanted to put out a powerful message with a catchy kind of vibe to it. And also to create a documentary to show the work that goes into creating a book and a music project. So it was like this full, total, like immersive experience that would take people into what it really takes. Because when you have an idea, right, like these ideas are put on your heart, not by accident. And like I totally believe like God puts these things on your heart and then literally opens up a pathway for you to do it. But most of us want to walk that way, or we walk that way. Like we walk away from the very thing that we are being called to do. And so I always say like the visions that you get, that like I told you, when my brother and I were younger making these video game companies, like it wasn't just, like these cool little videos, like we saw a bigger picture. We just didn't put the work behind it. Obviously we couldn't at 9 years old, but the same thing as being a rapper of like, I saw myself on stages and rocking these big crowds. And it's like, okay, now where are you right now? I'm sitting here in my bedroom thinking about this. Okay, now what steps do you need to take to bridge that gap? And just having that idea of, okay, the vision is there, the grind needs to be there, and you can accomplish literally anything from wanting to write a book to becoming an NBA, NFL superstar or anything like that. And so I think it was the premise and the intention was there. I think the timing and the method of which I went about doing it was off. Because I set a goal to get $10,000 in funding to make that happen. And we hit about 7,500 before the deadline. And it was an eye-opening experience for me because I set that goal of $10,000 thinking, I know 100 people that would contribute $100 to this. And I don't. Like, I seriously don't. And it was mind-blowing to say, like, the people who I would have thought would have been quick to, I got you, man. They left me on red on messengers and they wouldn't return phone calls. And then complete strangers were contributing to it just based on one conversation, and it was just an eye-opening experience. But the book actually was the most empowering part because in writing and telling my story and coming out, like, I'm starting to realize, like, this is only the beginning. Like, there's so much more to this. And being in our current situation now, it gives me so much time to just sit down and put that together. So vision and grind has evolved even more than just a book and a movie and a soundtrack to being the actual umbrella brand that encompasses Dubblup and anything that I do. And
I mean, it's fair to say that you hit some roadblocks. You probably hit some areas in your life and you're like, if I know what I do now, I probably would have chose to go a different way. And I mean, being able to put that out so like kids can actually have, the 100-day blueprint, so to speak. Shameless plug for the blueprint, which the blueprint is really awesome. But that's Curtis, or Dubblup. I always want to call you Curtis, so I'm sorry.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
But that is his blueprint. Him and Marv both worked on that together. And I mean, it is phenomenal for helping you build your personal brand. But I'm sure that, in your mind, you're thinking, how do you get, you get a blueprint out to business owners and maybe they'll ingest it and do it and they'll take the action steps and see the success. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just look at it. Maybe they won't take it in right away. But when you have kids that you can get that out to help them at such a young age, and I mean, most kids are usually trying to find something like, hey, how do I, and if it's entertaining, if it educates them, and if it keeps them, engaged, and especially your story. I mean, it's not, the end product is awesome because it's feel good now, but it wasn't feel good back in the day. It was, you went through the grind and I couldn't even imagine. I mean, I couldn't imagine it. So
well, here's the thing too. Speaking about kids is before this COVID situation, I was actually going to middle schools and high schools and talking to kids and even to elementary schools just to kind of understand what their world is right now and having that opportunity. And I saw that like that's what was missing for me was somebody that I could relate to that looked like me. And I don't mean just a black guy. I mean, young, that was willing to talk to me, not at me. And their responses, like they would come up to me and ask me questions. Like they're like, like I want to play football, but I don't think I have it in me. And like these real self-esteem issues and just things that when I was a kid, it wasn't cool to talk about your feelings. Like you get beat up talking about your feelings. You get made fun of talking about your feelings. And now we understand more things about bullying and mental health. But it's like to let a young person know that there are no boundaries before you get out into the world and let the world dictate what your narrative is. Like you already created and just, I'd love to see kids at 16, 17 years old, like I am going to be this. Like there's not like maybe like I'm going to do this. And like, it just blows my mind, man.
It's a commitment. And I think a lot of it too is just, and I mean, again, for me, like I don't have kids, at least not yet. But I know that just from family members and watching other, kids brought up in our family, you have to have that good core foundational home front where, and even sometimes if you do, sometimes you bring in the wrong group of people that really kind of, put your life on a path that is tough to get back from. Not everybody can. So that is really amazing that you got there. So now, kind of fast forwarding, you're working in the physical fitness sector, which, and it's funny because I remember when we hung out, you ended the night early. You didn't really do much of any, like you were just straight like, nah, I'm cool. I'm not really doing the drinking thing, which again, I respect that because that's tough. And especially now, alcohol sales, I think we're up like 300% or something crazy I saw. So, it's definitely, you're doing everything you need to do to level up, not just in mental clarity, but in your fitness. What are some things? So for anybody who wants to get in touch with you guys, I'm going to put I'm going to actually show the banner here. So eat.fit.com. What are some things, or .fit? See, so you just put it .com there. eat.fit. What are some things that you're doing as far as, I know you said you had a couple different things going on right now. You want to tell everyone a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a firm believer that physical fitness is the foundation of literally anything. Like even as a business owner, right? Like you are going to perform better when you are operating optimally. But we package fitness as some sort of extra thing or a chore, or, I gotta eat, right? But it's really not that. Like, I don't believe that there should be any restrictions. It's literally from individual to individual. Like, yeah, if you want a 6-pack and you make the choice to go through the steps to get a 6-pack, then you got to understand that I can't actually have the 6-pack. You know what I'm saying? So What I've done is I've kind of broken it down to steps. So like I believe with every piece of my heart that you can restart your entire lifestyle in 7 days. If you take 7 days and you give it intentional action around your fitness, around your mental, then it's the first step. Like you've already broken the cycle, because believe me, the hardest day in a fitness routine is day 3, because day 1, you're hyped up. Yeah, I'm ready to go. Day 2, oh, that was cool. I've done that. Day 3, I'm sore. The cravings are coming back. Now skip this day. And then next thing you know, you shot yourself in the foot that way. But if you can consciously go 7 days, then you can go beyond that. So in the midst of everything that we've done, I've created something called the 7-day stimulus package. And you can go to 7daystimulus.com and you can download it right there. And what that basically is it gives you the foundation for nutrition and the foundation for physical fitness, and then a 7-day plan to keep that going. And to be honest, man, like the idea of refraining from drinking and, eating right, it's not I'm better than you or this is what I have to do. It's just like, look, I'm not going to do that today. I'm not going to drink today. Doesn't mean I won't drink tomorrow, but I'm not going to do it today. And then you might wake up one day and, say, I'm going to have a drink today, and you enjoy it. But I'll tell you this much, you enjoy it so much more that one day than you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you know what I mean? And it just becomes a treat for you. Same thing like for me. Like if I were to sit up here and tell you I eat clean every day, I'd be a liar. Like I have pizza, I have burgers and fries and like all of that every day. No, I can't every day. I'm not 18 anymore. We're going to freaking Burger King on lunch break every day. Like you can't do that anymore. So
after 30 is rough, man. I mean, it's crazy because like I remember, because I'm about to be 35, and I remember when I hit 30, when I was 20, so I was 220 pounds when I was like 18. I'm a short guy, so that's a lot of weight for me. I got down to 140, which was almost too skinny. So I started to bulk back up again, but it got to a point where I could eat whatever I wanted. And I mean, I wouldn't gain weight. And especially when I started forming those really good habits, I had a couple of years where I was in I think I had like 7-8% body fat. It was ridiculously low.
Rip.
I
Yeah.
was, but I didn't have a whole lot. The problem was I didn't have a whole lot of like mass or muscle because I wasn't eating right. I was doing like that whole high protein where, you eat a ton of protein, but you don't eat any carbs ever whatsoever. You never touch carbs. And I'm like,
Mm.
I don't think this is the best, like, and so when I say carbs, it's not like vegetables, fruits, like I wasn't eating any of that. And I was always
Yeah.
like kind of like tired. I'm like, man, why am I so tired? Like, well, not
Yeah.
fueling
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but yeah, once you hit 30, I mean, it definitely, but I can definitely relate with like the business owner side because that was when I hit 30 is when I started my, I was 29, but close enough. But right around that time, I started my business and I noticed that when I first got started, when I was eating right, I had good energy. But as soon as I was putting crap in there and I wasn't going out, I wasn't being physical, I wasn't working out, I wasn't, setting routines, it absolutely killed my
And you
productivity.
just hit something on the head right there too. Routines and habits. Like before even writing a fitness program, like it doesn't even matter how much you're lifting, like how much weight you're lifting, how fast you're running. If you're not doing it consistently, the results aren't going to go there. So you've got to create routines and habits. And that's really what the whole 7-day thing is. Because in 7 days, if you can do it consciously, you're going to start to crave it a little bit. And so that's why I started with the 7 days. And then beyond that is 21 days, because they say in 21 days, you can create a habit, but by 21 days of conscious activity. But the thing that I really understand from a business owner perspective is we're not 9-to-5 people. Like we don't get lunch break from here to here so we can deliberately go out and eat and then sit back down. Like sometimes, and I was really notorious for this when I had my marketing business, was I would go 12, 16 hours without eating because I'm just focused on finishing this thing. And then when you go eat, you just, okay, I got 10 minutes before I got to get back to this. And you just go grab what's in the cupboard, a handful of this, and then that. And the next thing you know, like it was crazy. At the beginning of 2017, I went completely vegetarian. And I went from 210 pounds and I cut 210 to 175 pounds of like shivering skinny. My wife was like, "Yo, you need to put some weight on." And so when I finally reintroduced meat back into my system, it wasn't in a healthy way. So I put the weight back on, but it was like sloppy a little bit. And that was one of the things I think that contributed to my depression around the end of last year, because I didn't have a routine. I had gone against everything that I was drinking, and the Christmas came around and I was drinking. As a matter of fact, when I came out there to Nashville, that was when I started, like, that's maybe 2 or 3 weeks of when me like just consistently hitting the gym every day and getting right back into it and feeling good. So it was like when you guys were going out and hanging, I was like, man, I don't want to. It's not like I'm depriving myself of anything. It was just like, I am making the choice not to. And that's just the choices. But as entrepreneurs, that's the craziest part, is that like our lives are not structured, generally speaking. And if you ever get with a business coach, that's the first thing they'll say is, okay, let's start to create some structure, create some systems so you can remove yourself from having to spend, unnecessary brain energy on what do I need to do next? And you can put that brain energy into whatever you're good at. So it's the same thing with your fitness. Like if I know for a fact that between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m., I'm going to be reading and meditating, that's what it is. It's non-negotiable. If I know that at this time, I'm going to work out. And some people, like I have clients right now that are like, look, I can't work out on my own. I need to be told what to do. So I don't have to use this. I can save my mental for things that I'm good at. Because that's the thing I'm noticing. And I don't know what your demographic that listens to this, but, just being completely honest, like men have the worst time with fitness because we are so prideful in the fact that we were fit once upon a time. And it's like, hey, I know what I'm doing. It worked before, it'll work again. But same principle, that 18-year-old body with the quick metabolism ain't there no more. And at 30, 35 years old, there's some things that you have to do. Like you need to get some sleep. You can't pull those all-nighters anymore and not be bloated and be like half-witted in your brain. Like, you have to eat your carbs to make sure that you have that energy and going in there, you know, you got to run and make sure your heart's pumping, because that's what I really don't want to be, is you know, a middle-aged man who can't keep up with his 5-year-old son or daughter because I'm getting winded and all of that. So it's like, that's for me is the vision and the motivation. And I don't want to see that for anybody else.
And I agree. I mean, and I'm the same way. I think that too, because like when we decide to have kids, that's the last thing I want is to be the because I know I'm already going to be the older dad. Like, that's fine. But if I'm the older dad and I'm in great shape and you wouldn't know it, you know, then that's all good. So that's all that matters. So
yeah, most definitely.
Well, Curtis, I think you shared so much amazing information. And I mean, I guess to close things out, if there was one thing that you could leave kind of, you know, everybody with, as far as whether it's leveling up in personal fitness or, you know, branding, what advice would you give?
Discipline. Be disciplined, and discipline around everything. Because one thing that clicked for me about the word discipline is that it shares the same root word with the word disciple. Mm-hmm. And so somebody came to me once and they were like, every leader was once a good follower, or is also a good follower. And I said, no, that doesn't even make sense. How can you lead and follow? It doesn't make sense. But when I actually broke down the statement, it's not every good leader is a follower of men. Every good leader is a follower of principles. So being disciplined means that you submit to the process. And that goes along with your fitness, that goes along with your branding, because once you decide who you are, who you tailor your business to, the language that you're going to speak, you stick to that without fail. Once you decide who you want to be physically and how you structure your day to get those results, you stick to that without fail. Somebody once told me, never negotiate with yourself around your goals. And it starts at the beginning of the day. Discipline. When you set your alarm for 5 a.m., do you hit snooze? Because if you do, you've already started negotiating with yourself. You've already started that. And, you know, you're a terrible negotiator when it comes to yourself. So discipline, discipline. Be disciplined, but also have grace in that you're human. If you happen to slip up, don't shame yourself. Don't go hide. Own it. And then put structures and things in place so that it happens less.
I love that. Great advice. And thank you so much, Curtis, for jumping on. And guys, for everybody who's watching, same time next week. And of course, if you want to reach out to Mr. Dubblup, you have Dubblup.com. You got Curtis Washington on Facebook. You've got, you have the 7-day stimulus package. And we have all the websites too. So guys, if you want to reach out. And if
you want to follow me on social media, all of the platforms are at Mr. Dubblup, MrDubblup. It's on Instagram, Facebook. For some reason, I have a TikTok, all of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Curtis. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys on the next show.